Welcome to part 3 of the 3-part series, 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. The first question we focused on was the 11 multiplied by 12. And so far in the previous videos, we've built the 11 multiplied by 12 using the base 10 blocks. In the first video, we built the answer using base 10 blocks. In the second video, we built the answer by showing the value of the base 10 blocks and writing those down instead. And in this third video, we are going to look at how to represent both the question and the answer just using values of the base 10 blocks. Ask yourself if these two representations actually represent what I built when I build the 11 multiplied by 12. Picture the base 10 blocks in your head for 11. When I look at this representation here, do you see the 10? Do you see the 1? Now picture 12 in your head, built using base 10 blocks. Do you see the 10? Do you see the 2 ones? All right, now that we've done that, we can go ahead and figure out what the answer is to all of these questions. So I'm looking for the base 10 block that would fit here. That is 10 is the width and 10 is the length. So 10 multiplied by 10, well, that was 100. And then I'm looking for the base 10 block that would fit in here. That is 10 is the width and 1 is the length. So 10 multiplied by 1, that was a 10. Looking for the base 10 block that would fit right in here. 10 multiplied by 1 is 10. I need a base 10 block that fits here. That's 1 multiplied by 10. Well, that's 10. I need to figure out what 1 multiplied by 1 is. Well, that was 1. And 1 multiplied by 1, which is 1. And my final step was just to add it up. 100, 110, 120, 130, 131, 132. So the answer to 11 multiplied by 12 is 132. The next question is 13 multiplied by 13. So start by just figuring out how you're going to represent the 13 and the 13 for the question. See you soon. I've represented 13 multiplied by 13. Now go ahead and fill it in. All right, and when you're done, just add it up. And you should end up with the answer 169. Now you may be thinking to yourself, man, that's a lot of writing. Well, that is a lot of writing. And depending on what math facts you know, we can certainly group this up a little bit tighter than it is right now. So give me a second while I erase all of my answers. All right, I left the final answer of 169 there for now. Well, I could represent 13 as 10 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, but I do know my 3 times tables. So if I take out all of these plus 1s and consider them as plus 3, that'll make my life a little bit easier. And I can do the same thing for down here. Instead of looking at each of those 1 unit blocks separately, if I look at them as a chunk, this will make my life a lot easier. And just to help myself out a little bit, I'm just going to kind of split these up like so, just so I can see these chunks together. So here I needed a base 10 block that was 10 multiplied by 10. Well, that's 100. And then for here, I had 10 multiplied by 1 3 times. 10 multiplied by 3. Well, that's easy. 10 multiplied by 3 is 30. And then over here, I did 3 multiplied by 10. Well, that's 30. And then here, 3 multiplied by 3. Well, that's 9. And did I end up with 169? Let's check. 100, 130, 160, 169. The nice thing about this is I can chunk it up any way that I want to. I could have done 10 plus 2 plus 1. I could have done 10 plus 1 plus 2. Any of those would have been helpful. So use that idea in order to solve the next question. So the question is 12 multiplied by 14. Start by figuring out how you're going to chunk out your 12 and how you're going to chunk out your 14. I chunked mine out by place value, 10 plus 2, 10 plus 4. So again, we're just going to draw in the grid just to help us remember that there needs to be an answer in all 4 of these spots. If you want, you can even do this to help you separate the question from the answer, and go ahead and fill that in. So I've solved the question. I had 168. Is that what you got? Excellent, because that's the correct answer. Here's your next question. 11 multiplied by 15. Figure out how you're going to chunk out the question, solve the question, and then check back here to see if you've got the correct answer. The correct answer is 165. Here's your next one. 14 multiplied by 13. And the correct answer, 182. The next question is 15 multiplied by 13. In the previous videos, we already talked about how 15 multiplied by 13 was just one more than 14 multiplied by 13. So rather than starting from scratch, I can just extend this here and look at this as 1. So I could go 1 multiplied by 10 is 10. 1 multiplied by 3 is 3. And I know I'm just adding 13 more. So 195. If I was starting from scratch, though, solving 15 multiplied by 13, what might that look like? I'll leave that for you to figure out on your own. Here's the next question for you to figure out. 16 multiplied by 12. Go ahead and figure it out, and I'll be here working on an answer. And the answer is 182. And here's your final question. This is the puzzler from before. So take a moment before figuring out the answer to decide how would you chunk out 21. Did you decide you would chunk it out by saying 10 plus 10 plus 1? That will work. Did you decide to chunk it out as 20 plus 1? That will also work. Use whichever one is easiest for you to do in your head. Go ahead and chunk it out and then find your answer. All right. So I chunked mine as 20 plus 1. So I ended up with 200, 10, 60, and 3. If you chunked yours as 10, 10, and 1, you can probably see where your 200 lives and where your 60 lives. Let's look at the question 16 multiplied by 24. We're actually going to look at this one using 3 different methods. We'll start by using the one that we've been doing this whole time. So we have 16, which will split up as 10 plus 6. And we've got 24, which will split up as 20 plus 4. And we'll go ahead and solve that. 20 multiplied by 10 is 200. 10 multiplied by 4 is 40. 6 multiplied by 20 is 120. And 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. And when we add that all up, we have 200, 320, 360, 384. We're going to call this method 1. Another way that someone may solve this is by solving it in a vertical format, 16 multiplied by 24. And it might sound something like this. 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. 1 multiplied by 4 is 4, plus 2 is 6. Put a 0. 6 multiplied by 2 is 12. 1 multiplied by 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 3, 8, 4. We'll call this method 2. And the third way someone might solve this is still in that vertical format, but it might sound something like this. 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. 10 multiplied by 4 is 40. 6 multiplied by 20 is 120. 10 multiplied by 20 is 200. And this will add up to 384. Now let's take a look at these 3 methods. What's the same about these 3? What's similar about these 3? And what's different about these 3? Well, first and foremost, it's important to note that the answer is the same for all 3 methods. That means no matter which of the 3 methods you choose to use, you will get the correct answer. Which 2 methods are the most similar? Method 1 and method 3 are probably the most similar methods. When I take a look at, although the question may be represented differently, one is expanded and one is not expanded, I can see all of the answers are the same in both of them. I can see the 24 is in both. The 40 is in both. The 120 is in both. And the 200 is in both. That's why they're the most similar. The second method is the most compact one out of the 3. The 6 times 4, I can see my 24 in there. There's my 24. But it's kind of split apart. So what's really going on there? What's the difference between method 2 and method 1 and 3? Well, method 1 and 3 are both looking at each place value chunk separately. So I'm looking at the value of the blocks in method 1 and 3. But in method 2, I'm actually talking about the quantity of blocks. When I do 6 multiplied by 4, and I put my 4 there, well, that's because I have 4 ones. And my 2 is representing 2 tens instead of the 20, which is the value of the tens. So when I'm multiplying this 1 by this 4, I'm really multiplying 1 10 by 4 ones. And we've been talking about that as a value of 10 multiplied by 4. So method 2 is talking about quantity of base 10 blocks, whereas 1 and 3 are talking about the value. What's really important to note is that, like we already said, all 3 methods give you the exact same answer. Number 1 basically has the most writing in it. Number 3 is a simplified version of number 1. It's all vertically aligned and you're not drawing extra boxes. And number 2 is an even more compact version of number 3. You're not writing as many zeros in there. But when it comes down to it, there isn't much difference between 2 and 3. I can see that I've got a couple extra zeros that I've written down in method 3. So method 2 is definitely more compact. Here's the thing though. You need to decide for yourself which one of these methods makes the most sense for you. If you like number 1, use number 1. If you like number 2, use number 2. And if you like number 3, use number 3. They're both going to get you the same answer in the end. Now, I grew up using method number 2, and I'm very confident using method number 2. But now I actually prefer method number 1. And here's the reason why. I can use method number 1 easily to do 2-digit by 1-digit questions, 2-digit by 2-digit questions, 5-digit by 7-digit questions. And when I get to grade 9 and grade 10 and up, and I'm starting to deal with algebra, if I need to do x plus 6 multiplied by 2x plus 4, this process will also work. So for me, method number 1 is versatile, and it can be used easily in many different situations. But again, I cannot stress enough that you have to decide for you which one works the best for you. So that's the end of our video series for 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. I hope you found this helpful, and we'll see you in future videos.